Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Alexander, and I'm the owner of Realty Collective, a boutique real estate firm that I started 19 years ago, almost 20, to defy the stereotypes associated with real estate in New York City. The goal of this workshop is to give you a place to start when considering the home buying process. A big part of that decision is finances and taking into account the fiscal realities of buying a home in New York City. We offer this workshop freely so that you have the information you need to make educated decisions and to tear down the gatekeeping information that is often used as a scary scale sales tactics. This is likely the largest financial decision of your lifetime and should be handled with the utmost care. So educating yourself is one step in the right direction. So already you guys are doing something right by learning about the process and learning about the finances associated with it being able to buy. So congratulations to you. You already went over the housekeeping items. And I could go a little bit more about Realty Collective. Like I said, we started 19 years ago. We do other workshops called like buying in Brooklyn, selling in Brooklyn. We have a workshop coming up with an architect. And so I encourage you to learn more and more if you feel like you're ready. We do rentals and sales and some commercial, but mostly here in Brooklyn, we only work with small mom and pop landlords. So we're not working with any big companies or people that are using real estate really as a profit model. It always is a good investment and to create generational wealth. But I would say if you're buying 100 properties to be a landlord that gouges rent on people, you're not somebody that we're gonna want to work with here because that's a little bit against my ethos. So I'm gonna turn it over to the founder and chief planning officer at Brooklyn Plans, Kristen Uterid.
Hi, I'm Kristen. Good to be here with you all tonight. I love spending time with folks that are being proactive, educating themselves, getting on that path towards wealth building. You've got a head start because you could be at happy hour right now, but you're with us learning about home buying. So thanks for being here. I know time is a resource and you're spending it on yourself. You've already done something right by showing up. I started Brooklyn Plans in 2015 and I help women and allies build wealth through personal financial plans and investment management. We have a team at Brooklyn Plans and a team approach to financial planning. And so a lot of our clients have a goal of home ownership. I've walked a lot of clients through the process. I've been through the process myself, have a lot of perspective from different angles on what goes into it. And a lot of times clients have really specific questions that are really better suited to a realty professional such as Victoria, who's an expert and knows Brooklyn real estate forwards and backwards, in particular, also New York City at large, but as a resident in Brooklyn. And she's more equipped for some of those kinds of questions. And then the financial planning and the financial side of home ownership, sometimes the financial planner is more equipped to navigate tax consequences and whatnot. So we thought it would just be a really nice opportunity to team up, share both of our areas of expertise in one place so that neither of us has to say, please hold, and I'll get back to you with an answer. And we can tackle it from both angles at the same time, since they are really so intertwined. So excited to be here, and please ask questions. And when we're gonna have different bits that we're each doing, so I can be in the chat when it's Victoria's content and vice versa, I'm sure. So love to hear from you guys.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Really appreciate it and appreciate the intro. I'm going to go back to talking about how to know you're ready and things to consider. And like I said, I encourage everybody to leave their questions in the chat. And if we don't get to them, if they're not relevant to the point of where we are in the presentation, we will have a period at the end for questions and answers. Things to consider. Can't go back to pinning myself. How to know you're ready and things to consider. Lifestyle is usually the first thing that I always encourage people to assess for themselves. Give yourself a risk assessment. Assess the risk of home ownership versus the reward at the present moment in your life. Will you have enough money to fix something if it breaks? Do you have the bandwidth to even fix something if it breaks? Do you have a support system to help you get through the first year of home ownership? And are you willing to make sacrifices? Like I ate oatmeal and rice the first year, and I got a roommate. I did all sorts of crazy things because I bought a house by the skin of my teeth. I don't know how they let me do it, but I did everything in my power to make sure it happened because if without doing it that way, it wasn't going to happen for me because I own my own business and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. And I was also single at the time. And you really need to understand your own comfort level and your own tolerance for risk. So that's one thing. I have a very high tolerance for risk, and I'm not like everybody else. Really temper your own expectations about what this process will be like, and then assess if you can emotionally get through this process and be able and feel like you're in a comfortable state to meet the risks that come with home ownership. And being prepared is the best way to make sure you're less stressed. We pride ourselves on trying to de-stress the situation. Real estate in New York is very stressful. Renting, buying, anything, it's moving. Just moving is stressful. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything like educating yourself so it's less stressful, but you also want to be working with experts, well-advised team experts that their job not only to help you reach your goals, that's one of their jobs, but also to guide you through this process and make it less stressful. Being prepared allows you to be empowered and make better decisions. Don't make your, oh, we're going over that part. And I'll tell you a little bit later what I had to do to buy. I think there's an opportunity for that. So expectations versus reality. Come to terms what you're going to have to make concessions and that you can actually live with what you can afford. You're not going to go be able to get all the amenities and everything you're looking for. Make a list of your 5 deal breakers. I always tell everybody, and then realize you're going to have to take 2 or 3 things off that list. Home ownership comes with many perks: freedom, building equity, building wealth, establishing roots, and creating community for yourself. However, not without sacrifice. Like I said, sacrificing eating rice, getting a roommate, changing your lifestyle just for a little bit to get through the door, to get over that hurdle. All the problems with buying a property are now become your problems. If you were in a renting before, that was your landlord's problem. So if you're in a co-op working with the board, if you're moving to a new neighborhood, befriending neighbors, and establishing community, your funds will be tight that first year, and that's okay. Purchasing a home is a financial and personal commitment. Though you can always sell it, it'll take 5 years to reach a break-even horizon where you'll have profit from selling your home or even break even. Those are things to consider. The best way to know if you're ready is to educate yourself on the buying process. Workshops like this one, research, interviewing seasoned professionals who can give you advice that you must be willing to hear. Work with people who give you the tools to advocate for yourself. Talk to others who've done it before. Hear other stories and experiences and talk to your peers, not your parents. Also, especially people in the New York City, Brooklyn community, because this process here is very specific and is unlike anywhere else in the country. So make sure you're talking to people that have bought in co-ops and condos here in New York City or townhouses so that you have a real firsthand experience from somebody else that has gone through the process, and that's going to be relatable to yours, not somebody like in Texas. Take into consideration timing. Do you have a lease currently that you are a month on or that has another year on? Do you plan on staying in New York City for the next 5 years? And if you have a commitment to stay in New York, then probably now is the best time than ever. Keep in mind that you want to also take into consideration some life milestones. Are you going to be getting married, having a kid, considering school districts? Don't be buying something 3 months before school starts. You're going to be fighting against everybody else that is looking for a property in that school district. Other things to consider: will you be growing your family? Do you have job security? Is your commute going to change? Are the things that you improve your quality of life now, are they going to be the same things in the future? Are you going to desire living next to bars and restaurants? That your future is being next to the park because you are an avid runner and you live a little too far now, and you could probably sacrifice the bars and restaurants because your life's going to change. And my biggest thing I'm going to say is don't try and time the market. If you are ready, do it. If the market is saying there's conditions that to say don't do it, but don't time the market so that you're trying to buy at the bottom and sell at the top. That New York City is a game, and you're going to be competing against a lot of other people that have a lot more money than you, have a lot more experience than you. Do it when you're ready. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen to talk about the financials to consider when you're buying.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. I agree 100% with what Victoria said. A lot of clients have fears about timing, not only when making a real estate investment, but also with stock market or brokerage kind of investments. And the right time is when you are ready mentally, emotionally, financially. It's more about internal timing versus external factors. And then financially, I know Victoria is going to share her story with you. And there are certainly stories about people who just scrape by and make it work to buy property because it's the most important thing for them. That said, from a financial planner perspective, I'd love to see my clients have a fully funded emergency fund. What I mean by that is 3 to 6 months of your take-home pay in a savings account to support you. It's more important than ever when you make a purchase because things can go wrong and you may need to make repairs or replace things once you're an owner. You can't just make a phone call and have somebody come and fix it. And then the biggest thing for most of my clients that I want to see is the surplus in the spending month to month. So meaning my clients are spending less than they make in order to afford what is in most cases that I see with my clients an increased monthly cost for housing in order to buy. There's situations, and I know Victoria's worked with clients where they're actually going to be paying the same or even less to buy because people may be buying in a different neighborhood than where they live or a smaller place than what they live in now. But generally, I'm seeing that owning is going to be an increase for our clients. So I want to see that they have that ability. We want to see that you're going to be comfortable with the costs of home ownership on a month-to-month basis. And then managed debt or manageable debt. What I mean by that is not that you don't have any debt. A lot of people do. Student loan, credit card, car, it's okay to have debt. The important thing from a financial planning perspective is that it be managed and manageable, meaning it's not out of control. If you have credit card debt, you have a plan, you're getting out of it, you're paying it off, not still getting into it. If you've got student loans, you're on the payment plan that you need to be on that's right for you. So really just being on top of it. You don't have to clear your debt in order to be a homeowner. You just financially, it's going to be a more stable starting point if you have a strategy for dealing with it before you take on more debt, as most people do when they buy through the form of a mortgage. And then for debt to income ratio, this is what lenders look at when they assess your ability to repay a mortgage. And what they are looking at is your monthly debts in as a ratio of your total income. So it's your monthly debt payments, not your debt balances. So even if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, if you, which many people do, if you're paying 500 or 1,000 or whatever it might be a month, that's the number that matters to lenders, not the total. And that's a common misconception that you can't have large balances of loans in order to qualify for a mortgage.
Is it back to me?
Was there anything you wanted to add on debt to income ratio?
No, I can just talk about how bad my situation was and that I was not prepared at all. Everything you're saying, I did the opposite of, total opposite. I had just bought out another business that was off the record. So then the banks didn't even know about it. So I had bought out another small business for $125,000. So that's why some of my cash was gone. So I couldn't buy the house. And I think I said before, also, I used to get the down payment. I had gotten in a car accident, and so I used the cash from my car accident, my engagement ring that I had bought myself and kept from my first marriage, and had to have my parents co-sign my loan also, and I had to borrow a small amount of money from them also to buy my house. And I owned my own business, and so there was like no way I knew that I was like gonna get all this together. I had no budget. I had no idea how to budget. I went to art school and I had started a company. So I did not, I took a lot of, like I said before, I took a lot of risk and it's okay. It turned out okay because I'm a bootstrapper, but also could have gone a totally different way.
Yeah, and there's different ways to arrive at the same endpoint. I think for some clients, they don't have that sort of bootstrapping risk appetite for risk that you have, and they really want to know, I do this? Is it gonna work? Is it gonna mess up my plan? Is it gonna throw me off for retirement? So that's generally the kind of client concerns that we're fielding. And then we want to put clients in the best position possible to manage that transition. But and this is what I'm saying is ideally financial planner approved, but the
In a
reality
perfect
is,
world, it's
yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah. The reality is, have I worked with clients to take money out of a 401(k) in order to make a down payment? Yes. You do what you got to do. Do clients use every last cent in their emergency fund to come up with the down payment? Yes, that's the real world. And if you're in a position to check these boxes, then certainly check them off if you can.
Yeah, let's do it. Don't wait because if you could be waiting forever, but also be prepared in a reasonable, sensible way. If you have navigated across the board, it's probably not. And then a bank also won't loan you. Imbalances in the system, the days of the 2000s where there was no income verification mortgages and the appraisals were all rigged and different to just help the banks. Those days are over. They caught those all those loopholes. So there are some catch-alls to make sure that you are going to be able to be prepared for this situation. So don't feel like uh, that you're just going off of what Kristen and I are saying. So then I think next slide we're going to just talk a little bit about appreciation. And people always ask us this, and I think it's just like a really good thing to cover about because if people are like, why shouldn't I just make an investment in the stock market or should I make an investment in something else? And so we went on to Street Easy just to go over some of the appreciation numbers. And you can see that for New York City, these neighborhoods here across the board are appreciating. Some of them are appreciating up to 100% if they've been owned for 5 to 10 years in East Brooklyn. This outlines some neighborhoods, so you do have to be savvy enough to understand what neighborhoods will have maximum appreciation. If you're buying in a neighborhood that was already, I call them A, B, and C neighborhoods. So if you're buying in an A neighborhood, which is already very desirable, very wanted, you're gonna have less appreciation, but your property is still gonna appreciate because on average, New York City properties appreciate unless you bought something at such an egregious time in the wrong time of the market and that you'll never see that number again because you didn't make a smart decision. You made a emotional decision and it wasn't based on comps. You bought an all cash $5 million house because you just hit the bank on crypto and might need to sell it for $4 million a couple of years later when nobody else wants to pay that because you weren't making a smart decision with your finances. This chart shows you that if you buy something and hold on to it, the property is going to appreciate over time. And at the same rate, it should be appreciating along with what you're paying for your interest and some of your other costs associated with that. So at a certain point, you will be able to sell it for a profit. And just depends on many different variables, where it is, what kind of property it is, how much it'll appreciate. But overall, it's a given that that's what's going to happen. So any questions about that specifically? We're going to just go on to making you feel good about that part of it and talk about where to start now that you feel we've gone over all the risks and things to consider before. Go ahead. Were you say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm curious when you talked about A, B, and C neighborhoods, it just brought up the question that maybe other people have as well. Where are you seeing as being a potential future bright spot in terms of appreciating areas in Brooklyn?
Sunset Park, Prospect Lovers Gardens, anything like south of the park, I would say, or on the east side of the park. For me, particularly anything by the water. So Sunset Park, Greenwood, Ditmas. Flatbush Ditmas. I love Victorian Ditmas. I think even if you can get a co-op or a condo over there, there's great value. And I think that people just, if you appreciate being in that kind of like your Ferraris is right there, it's just a different part of Brooklyn that you feel like you're in the burbs, but it's still reasonable. You're off the Q train to get the things, and you might not be able to buy a giant townhouse or Victorian house out there. But they do have co-op and condo buildings, and the co-ops are pretty reasonable. And you get a lot of space for your money in like great buildings that have amenities like doorman and security and gyms and parking and all these things. It's just not people are always just, oh, I can go to the burbs and get so much more space, but then you have to actually leave New York. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But that's for me. I have a lot of clients looking out there right now because I think there's just so much space for your money.
Well,
Okay. So where to start? I always encourage people before they go out to open houses or go on Street Easy or go on Zillow and start looking at apartments is to really understand what your buying power is. And nobody can really tell you that. There's no online calculator that's going to really give you a real concrete number. So you need to talk to a mortgage professional. And that first stop then is getting your pre approval. It is a very simple, fast, painless process. They're going to ask you for a couple documents and they're going to give you a sense of your purchasing power, show you where your financials are. So if you're not ready, where you need to go. And this is really the right time. And many agents won't allow access to see units without your pre approval in hand. So, to show that you're aggressive and serious buyer, they really want you to be ready. And that means not only having your pre approval, but having your team together. So, next is creating your dream team. You need 3 people. You need 4 if you're working on making sure your finances are in order. And if you don't have them already, is your buyer's broker, which is me. I represent you in the transaction. Sellers have their own brokers, a real estate attorney. And a real estate attorney is somebody that does not is not related to you, is not your uncle, is that someone that does condos and co-op sales as their bread and butter of the business, transactions, real estate transactions on an everyday basis in New York City, not in Oklahoma, not in Jersey, New York City. You need a mortgage professional, and that means usually a broker, because a broker will be able to give you access to many types of products, where a mortgage banker at like Bank of America or Wells Fargo, they're going to mostly offer you products that those banks have. Wells Fargo products. They don't have investor products. They can't get creative. Mortgage professionals can, and the fees are relatively the same. So you want to be talking to a mortgage professional. Mortgage professional is also going to tell you if you work for yourself, like how to tweak your taxes and tax returns and do different things to make sure that you are presenting yourself in the best light to the banks. So those, and then you need, of course, your financial planner to make sure you crunch your numbers and feel that you are confident in the buying process, that you have not only your down payment and your closing costs, which you didn't talk about yet, but you also have your um, post-closing liquid funds that a lot of buildings ask for, that you're going to have your safety fund and your emergency fund and the things that the condo board and co-op are going to ask for to make sure that they're going to say yes to you, because you don't want to go through all this whole process and then the co-op say, no, sorry, you can't live here. So before you go visit open houses and see what's out there and get a lay of the land, you want to get your pre-approval together, talk to your team, and then view things with a person on your team. Then talk to your friends and family about different neighborhoods. What do they like about living in Kensington? What don't they like? Call your friends, have brunch with them, try and figure out what neighborhoods are right for you. New construction, explore new neighborhoods, test the commute from work. You're flexing your education. You might have it dead set in your head that you live in Cobble Hill and you want to stay in Cobble Hill, but you just found out you can't afford Cobble Hill. So explore. It's my most fun thing to do is be a tourist in my own town. I get to rent an Airbnb. I think that's hard to do these days. Rent a hotel room in the Lower East Side and wake up there for 3 days and be like, this is what it'd be. I've never lived in the East Village. This is what it could be my life if I lived here. And I think that's what I really encourage buyers to do with neighborhoods they're not familiar with. Go talk to their friends that live there. ask why they don't like living there or do living there, and what their favorite restaurants are. Like, what is the sense of place, and can is it align with your quality of life values that you're looking for? So, buying basics. Is there any questions in the chat for me that I should be answering, or Kristen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. Getting there. Buying basics. I'm not talking too fast, right? I'm from New Jersey. I do talk a little fast. I'm making a conscious effort not to do that. So, down payment, minimum, and closing costs. In New York City, you'll typically get 20% down as the down payment for what people want. And that's what for condos and co-ops. But as with anything, there are exceptions to this rule. It just narrows down your pool of options. Your competition, the other buyers, are going to be possibly putting down 20%. And so if you want to stay competitive for in-demand listings, you should aim to have 20% down. Co-ops versus condos. Co-ops are typically less expensive than condos, but they have stricter financial requirements in the building and stricter rules in the building in general. And if you do need to take into consideration closing costs. Co-ops not only are cheaper, but their closing costs are also less expensive, and condos around 3 to 5%. Okay, this is what is a hot topic right now that everybody's talking about, which is understanding interest rates. What in the news about interest rates plays a big factor when considering the housing market in New York City. If interest rates go up, people are less inclined to take out a mortgage. And if they go down, people are more inclined. So right now, the current average 30-year fixed mortgage rate is around 7%, which is considered medium to high. In the 2000s, interest rates were around 8 to 9%. So just think about that. Wasn't that long ago? And many of my colleagues, that was like the norm. This 2 to 3% that we all experienced during this COVID blip on the market is never going to happen, I think, in our lifetime again. And kudos to those who were able to take advantage of it. But just know that you're probably not going to ever be able to attain that. And so making your goals, oh, I'm not going to buy something until those interest rates come back, it was such a long shot to begin with. It was such an anomaly to begin with. So move past that. And interest rates don't always dictate your financial reality. Even if interest rates are higher than you would prefer, you can always refinance later if and when they do go down. Most mortgage companies right now are offering incentives like free refi within the first year with no fees, because they know that they want to try to encourage buyers to not be scared of the interest rates that they have to commit to. Unless you are someone like me, because I own my own business, refinancing is a challenge. Know that refinancing will be an opportunity for you in the future. Comparing mortgage products. As with any product, do some comparison shopping. See what will work for you. You're not just going to go buy, I was going to say a pair of earplugs. And I was like, yes, I would just go buy the Apple ones because I know they're going to be the ones. I don't have Apple earbuds, actually. I Bang& Olufsen ones because of noise canceling capabilities are much better. And I did a lot of research. And you should do the same when you're buying a product, and especially one that has so much financial significance for you. Is you do your research, you comparison shop, and understand the terms of the product that is being offered to you. It's better to be working with established mortgage companies instead of online businesses like Quicken and Rocket Mortgage when buying in New York City, because they better understand the intricacies of New York City real estate. You want a real person managing your project, not a computer, not people that don't understand New York City specific co-op and condo process. Like I said over and over, New York City is very specific, and I've closed one Rocket Mortgage deal ever. There are constantly new programs and loan types that could suit your needs, and tons of first-time homebuyer products. I just heard of a doctor's program. So knowing what industry you're in and seeing if there's other products available based on what industry you're in. So talk to your HR departments about that and shopping around to know what will best suit your needs. There's things from 30-year, that's what everybody assumes, but you can do a 7 or a 15-year ARM. Those are having much lower rates right now because you can are most likely going to be refinancing them in the short term. These other terms you're going to need to familiarize yourself with, which is rate lock, points, extensions, term and length, prepayment penalties, variables or locked rate, costs, and flexibility. There's some deep dive you need to go into on the mortgage product side. Do your research and talk with multiple mortgage brokers. Get several quotes before choosing. You want to understand all the different types of mortgage products before making any decision. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about is fixer-uppers versus turnkey. Okay, condos and new constructions will most likely be a turnkey purchase, meaning once you get the keys, you can move right in. You don't have to do anything. It's ready for you. Typically, they are the most expensive. New construction, which has a modern feel, most amenities, most homogenized, and all those white glove fixings and services that people want or think that they want. Because some people I've known or sold them a place and they've moved in and they said, actually, we don't use any of that stuff. We're overpaying. We need to get to a different building. So if you know you're going to use those things because you're in a building like that now, then it's probably worth it for you to pay for those things. Co-ops are the place to find real value because a lot of them need work, but it costs money to do work in co-ops because you need to go through the co-op board. You need to go notify the co-op board and do something called an alteration agreement. Everything permits need to be pulled for everything. Their plans need to be approved by both the city and by the co-op board. You need to have a contractor that's licensed and has insurance, and so do all his subcontractors. And you need to check the renovation policy. Like if you really want to put in a washer dryer, a lot of co-ops don't let you. Special mortgages you can take out when considering renovations are things like the 203K loan, and there's other products like that as well. And it's possible to renovate on a budget. We have great articles about doing the work over time and doing it yourself and opting for recycled materials and getting creative so that you do not have to be getting gouged by contractors, architects, and everybody and their mother while renovating a house in New York. I'm sure you've all heard the horror stories. So now that we've gone over some of the basics, don't feel financially ready or educated enough. Kristen's going to talk to you about how to get prepared to make those first steps.
Awesome. So just wanted to give a quick shout out. I see several Brooklyn plans folks in the house, some clients and people that I've worked with in the past or have had touch points with in the past. So I'm glad you guys are all here, and to the rest of you, I'm glad you're all here, but it's cool to see some folks getting extra education in addition to their financial planning. So if you are taking this all in, feeling, yeah, this is interesting, but not now, that's sort of one path you might find yourself on. Or another path might be, I have a lot of these things done. Maybe I need some education, but I feel like I'm ready to start really the process and seeing if it works out for me to buy a place. I would say no matter where you are, it's good to start getting support and get on track for that destination of homeownership. And if you're in that first camp of, yeah, this is maybe a few years out, 3, 5, 10, then what I would suggest is to first really understand where you are now. And good ways to do that would be to check your credit, see what your credit score is if you're not aware. I would recommend myfico.com is a good resource. When you are going through the pre-approval process to get a mortgage, the lenders will pull your credit scores from all 3 credit bureaus. There's 3 credit bureaus. And there'll be a low, mid, and high score, and they're going to go with the middle score. And that will determine your interest rate. So you'll get a preferential rate if you have better credit. That's a general oversimplification, but more or less how it works. So if you're not really sure where you stand, I would invest. I think if they have a one-time payment to check your credit score. There's places you can do it for free, and certain credit cards have credit monitoring. But if you want to know like the real score that lenders are going to see, I would go to myfico.com and see where you're at with that. Also, just taking a look at your budgeting and savings and seeing what needs to be worked on? Do you have to come up with a plan for debt? Do you need to work on your spending so you can stop getting into debt or make more of a dent in it? Really just kind of doing an assessment, a lay of the land so that you can start to build a healthy foundation. And that's going to be important whether or not you buy, to have that solid foundation financially. And then set affordable and realistic goals. So, one of my favorite ways to help clients prepare for homeownership is to have them save whatever the difference is between their current rent and what the monthlies would be if they bought. And remember, when I'm talking about monthlies, there's the mortgage, which is principal and interest. There's taxes. There's common charges for condos and co-ops. And am I missing something? Or is that all of them, Victoria?
I think that's all of
I
them.
think that's all of them, right? Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance and common charges. Yeah. So all of that can add up to be more than what you're paying in rent. So let's say that you have a price point in mind, you run the numbers and you're looking at 4,000 monthly, and right now your rent's 2,500. So I recommend that clients save that gap, that 1,500 every month, so they can start to see what does it really feel like to live off of the remaining income when you have a $4,000 mortgage payment, monthly housing payment altogether. So if you're not there yet, then you can figure out your time frame, figure out what that total down payment would have to look like, and then work backwards to make sure that you're putting the amount needed in each month, or that it's set aside from, if you have a lump of cash sitting somewhere in savings. That helps you work backwards to understand what do you need to do between now and 3 or 5 or 10 years to get on track and be on track. And you can boil that down to, what do I need to do this year? What do I need to do each month? So it's really going to be baby steps that get you there. And then getting your financial house in order, saving for an emergency fund. We talked about getting spending in check. I know these aren't easy steps to take. I don't say it lightly. They're big projects, but they're important to tackle, and they're going to be more important to tackle so that you're in a solid spot when you do embark on home ownership. And then create financial accountability. So there's different ways you could do this. You could do this independently by having deadlines in your calendar or reminders, or set up an automatic savings plan. A lot of high yield savings accounts will allow you to set up a savings withdrawal from your main checking account on a consistent basis. So these are things you can do on your own. You could also have an accountability buddy with friends or someone else who shares your goal. I'm biased, but I really recommend, even if it's not Brooklyn Plans, I would love for it to be Brooklyn Plans, but if you work with somebody else, I'm really big about people getting the help and support they need from financial advisors, so that you can establish a realistic goal and work with a professional to make sure that you get there and you have all the strategies and tools you need to come up with that down payment and then transition into successful home ownership. And wanted to say before we wrap up and take some questions that I know this can be really daunting and intimidating for people, this idea of making such a huge purchase. And I want to encourage you to be open-minded and to consider what it would look like for yourself. I hear a lot of clients say that they can't afford to buy in New York City, and New York City is a big city. There's 5 boroughs, there's all different kinds of housing, all different kinds of neighborhoods at different price points. So I think what people are really saying is, I can't afford to buy the type of place I want to buy in the neighborhood I want to live in. And that may very well be true. But I think, especially for your first purchase, it might not be your dream home. Maybe it is a studio, and I know nobody wants to buy a studio. But with New York City real estate, it's like getting your foot in the door. If you're really committed to being a homeowner in New York City, it's not going to come without sacrifice. It's not going to come without compromise. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it, or that it's out of reach or inaccessible to you. It might just be a matter of being creative, considering things, solutions you hadn't considered before. And I really encourage you to stick with that goal because I see a lot of folks that really could buy and have some roadblocks and stumbling blocks to doing it. And once I did it, I'll say for myself, I was like, yeah, it was 3 months of a lot of back and forth and administrative, and it was a pain in the butt. But then I was like, that really wasn't that bad. And it's not like you're locked in. You can always sell, you can always rent if you're not in a co-op that restricts rent. You have this asset and you're not like chained to it. I don't recommend going into it expecting to sell it the next year, as Victoria mentioned, but I got lucky and actually bought in Beacon in the Hudson Valley during the pandemic, and my home value has increased significantly just since 2020 when I bought. And it's not like the last time you'll probably make a purchase of this size. It's the first time, and there's ways to do it. So I just encourage you all to whichever point in your journey you find yourself. I know I won't say who, but I know there's somebody on here today who bought and actually has already paid off their mortgage recently. And that was an exciting milestone. So you're all at different points in your process, and wherever you are, don't compare yourself to others. Just the important thing is to make the next forward step that's right for you. Victoria, did you want to take us out
I
here?
I think that was great. I really think that was great, Kristen. I really appreciate that. And I think that it's so important just to not overthink this or not think about it at all. This is something you want to do, but that you pushed it out of your mind that this is inaccessible to you. Just have the conversation and just start talking to us, talk to your family, your friends. Like this is you want something to happen. Like I believe in manifestation. You need to put it out there into the world so that it can happen and start these conversations so that your dreams can come true if this is what you want to do for yourself. And I'm assuming nobody would be on this call if that wasn't something they were interested in doing. So let's get you on a path to making it happen. And like I said, I've worked with people who looked at their first place and they bought it. And I've worked for somebody that took 5 years to find a place. And it doesn't matter. It's all about the journey and helping people get there and how long it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's that like we're working together to get to that end result. And it just sometimes it takes a lot longer for other people because there's financial hurdles, there's personal life hurdles. Like just got to keep trucking and stay on the pathway. So we're open up for questions. And thank you guys, everybody, for coming. A couple of closing things. This video will be available online. If you missed any points of it, we'll share out an email with some other resources. You'll be part of an email list that'll send out some resources over the next couple of weeks. And asking your questions here. And if you're not comfortable, set up some time to talk to us directly to ask your questions one-on-one. So everybody take themselves off mute, or you can put yourself in the chat to ask the questions. But go ahead, let's just jump on into it. Any questions here? Take yourself off mute or raise your hand or.
While people are thinking about it, I have a question for you, Victoria.
Oh, great. Put me on the spot.
Is that okay? That's what we're doing.
Sure,
That's what
sure.
we're doing here.
Yes.
You can ask me one next, but I'm curious, what is the sort of the word on the street as far as I know inventory is low, really low right now, but there's this anticipation that interest rates will drop this year. What are you expecting to see, or what's the buzz in New York City real estate professional in the industry?
I still think the market's going to be pretty tight. I think that they said again today that their plan is not to do anything with interest rates, which is frustrating because I think that would help a lot of people out. But like I said before, you could refi. So don't like take advantage of it. Other people are also waiting for that change and not wait. I think there'll be a good amount of inventory that comes on here in the spring. There's already been some nice uptick in inventory, especially compared to what was happening in the fall. So I think that the market's going to be a little bit better than last year, but we're not going to see a full recovery like we had to do 2 years before after the pandemic because of the interest rates and just people that don't want to let go of that interest rate. I talked to a woman today about possibly selling her house, and I think I convinced her not to sell. Like doing such a great job. She has a 3% interest rate and she can rent it out for a little bit. And she's going to go live in New Zealand and settle some family affairs. And was like, yeah, I don't think that maybe I know that my job is to help you sell something. And I'm just going to give you the best advice, which is you don't probably need to do that and you can figure it out. So maybe I'll rent her place or I just lost another client because I just give my honest advice.
You're too honest. Yeah.
Too
Same.
honest. I should have just been like, you should definitely sell now, no matter what. But it's probably not, it doesn't make sense. Like she's got a really great rate. She doesn't need to, she's not in a pinch. And there's a bunch of other moving parts that I think that when she told them to me, I said, this is, you don't need to make this. There's a lot of decision making also, and you're gonna get decision fatigue real fast.
I think we're both in the business of building relationships and giving unbiased advice, even if that's not in our best interest, just because
Yep.
I think what's in the client's best interest is in our best interest in the end. And I know you have that kind of thought
Yep.
process too. If anyone has any questions, we're here: finance, real estate, mortgages, remodels.
Try
Yeah.
us.
See if there's
I
something
like
we
I
can't
like
answer.
a challenging question.
Yeah. Or something super specific, it's fine. We're here till 6 for you guys, or I can keep putting you on the spot, whatever.
Or we could also just call it. We're gonna send you guys some resources. I could think of some. So if you're, do you have a standard like budget that you help people try to understand when they go through trying to understand their expenses? And like for me, when I was, anytime I look at my credit card every month and I'm like, oh, look at all the services I have. But for running a business, I like need to have Mixmax and Chatterbox and Zoom and all these other programs that like help my business function that I couldn't do without. So it's so hard to cut any of that stuff. But I only have one online streaming platform. I do not have Netflix plus Hulu plus something else. I just borrow other people's. So like what are some of the like most basic things to help like start chipping away at having better control of your expenses on a monthly basis?
Yeah, that's a good question. The approach that we take is doing some analysis, figuring out what clients' goals are, how much they need to be saving, for example, for a down payment on a monthly basis. And then we back into a safe to spend number. So we don't care how our clients spend it. We just say you can spend safely without interfering with your goals. Maybe it's 700 a week and however much that works out to be a day. I guess it's 100. That's, I picked a good number, 100 a day. And as long on all of your non-committed costs. So that's still eating, it's still doing your laundry and whatever else. But that is what we found works versus saying getting into our client's business and telling them not to get a manicure or not to go out to eat. It's so hard to know what people's lifestyle requires. Like you said, you're a business owner, you need these things. So who am I to come in and say you don't need it? Or make a judgment call on that. All I can say is here's how much we can safely spend and still be on track for your goals. So that's kind of the approach we take to it. It's different. We don't do line item budgeting and we don't have our clients track expenses. It's just like we have them actually open a separate checking account and transfer a weekly budget, a weekly spending amount to it, and then they spend it. And then the next week it's replenished. And that's how we do it. And I found that's like the most straightforward, sane, not getting into the weeds or beating yourself up way to go about it.
Okay. Oh, every other time is, oh, what are these things that I'm paying for that I'm not using? Let's get rid of those. That's usually what I only have a handful of those.
Yeah, that's always a good idea, like a subscription inventory. We just go through your bank account expenses once in a while on a monthly basis and see are there things there that you don't need or could change. I almost always find something. So yeah.
Audible's really got me. I like always want to cancel, but then we just like we can put it on pause for a little bit. And oh, you still have all these credits to use, and you're never gonna read these books anyway. Gosh, I really need to cancel Audible.
Their marketing is working. It's working on you.
Yeah, but also it's books. Like it's education. It's like so hard to shut down. Come on, anybody want to ask us any questions, or else we're gonna go. And I want to thank everybody. I know that it is always hard to join a class when it is the end of the day and you're tired. We will be following up and be in touch, and you know how to find us if you need us. And I hope you learned something and can tell us what you did or you didn't when we follow up with you. Okay,
Well,
everybody, have a good night.
good night. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.